Y'all respect the one who got shot. I respect the shooter.
Welcome. This is season 3, episode 3 of Designated Report Behind the Lens. My name is Johnell, and finally, I'm here with Amber. It's been at least 2 years where I've reached out to you. You've been busy. You've had long seasons, but finally we're able to link up. How are you? How are you feeling?
I'm doing really good. We're in the midst of planning for the season coming up, so it's about that time of year, but I'm having fun.
So you, for anybody that doesn't know, you're a video creator, director,
Video producer. Yeah.
video producer for the Chicago Sky, WNBA. And are you there year round? Are you creating content year round?
Yeah, I'm there year round. So obviously during season it's a lot easier. You have fresh highlights and you get the players right there in front of you. And then the off season it's a lot of, how do we stay relevant, in playing into
Absolutely.
like the NBA. And then, when we get into times like now with free agency and stuff. So, but I do get to create stuff year round, and a lot of it is planning for the coming year of, in arena content that we're going to shoot, and social media stuff that we could pitch to potential sponsors, and just new things that we want to try.
Gotcha. So are you, when it comes to the video production and that side of it, are you like overseeing everybody, or are you working for, like, how does that work? Where do you fall and all that?
So a couple of people do report to me. Our designer, our social media manager, and then also have a production assistant who does a lot of the quick little turnaround videos for
Yep.
social hype videos has been Lena. And then Crystal, who I'm sure you've seen her on W Twitter.
Yes.
She's our digital content producer, and she does kind of help more so on the planning side of things, and then also is an amazing editor. So but both of them are great in terms on the video side of things.
Gotcha. And you guys definitely have one of my favorite social media accounts. And I know just recently you did, it was like a collaborative post. It was you guys and somebody else.
Minnesota.
Um, yeah, but it was incredible. Like, I watched it over and over again a few times. It was incredible because you don't see that too often in terms of like collaborative posts between teams.
Yeah, so that was something that is actually Minnesota's idea. Their content team reached out to me and was like, "Hey, we got this announcement coming up. We know it's more so a league thing, but do you guys want to collab on something for it? Since it's, both our teams were kind of, the guinea pigs for this entire situation."
Yeah.
So we're like, all right, let's hop on a call and just kind of throw ideas at a wall and see what sticks. We created the video teaser in Chicago, and then the Minnesota team created the graphic that went out.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Uh, yeah, so it came out really cool. Crystal is the one that edited the video on our end, but we had, some ideas. And I don't know how many people actually caught it, but um the tease of it, like the Toronto skyline was embedded in one of the clips of the skylines where all of them were like over each other.
Yeah.
Toronto's was on there, so that was like our hint. But I don't know if many people saw it. I did see a couple comments where people were like, "Yeah, Toronto, it's going to Toronto," and
Yeah.
other people were like, "Well, what's going on?" So that was like the fun part of it, I guess.
That's awesome. Are you do you live in Chicago?
Yeah, well, I actually live in the suburbs. I
Okay.
grew up out here, so I still live out by my family.
Gotcha. Um, so you I was doing a little research, and I saw that you did go to school for video and film, correct?
Correct.
And did you did you go into school knowing that that's what you wanted to do, or did you go in kind of mess around for a semester or two, and then, what led you into that field and ultimately getting a degree? I assume you
Yeah,
graduated and got a degree.
I did. In 2015, which is a crazy thought because that was seems so long ago now. But I actually went into school knowing what I wanted to study. I got into it, oddly enough, I actually wanted to be a journalist when I first was, considering college career or career paths post college. I was on my high school paper and I loved it. I loved to write. And I decided like my senior year to take broadcasting as just a way of like, let me experience all side of
Yes.
journalism. And in that class, once a month, we did film studies and we would watch a movie. And the first one that we watched was American Psycho, the
I just watched that
original.
last night, actually.
We watched the original, the Alfred Hitchcock one. And
Yep.
then we got assigned a film study project where we would create a video in or short film in that director's style or whatever director we were
Gotcha.
studying. And to me, that was so much fun, like just getting to go out and be creative. And obviously they're super cheesy because it's, your classmates are like
Yeah.
the stars of it. But it was a lot of fun and I loved like the editing side of it a lot. And then even covering oddly enough, like part of the reason that I wanted to do that was because I played on our girls basketball team and we were pretty good. We won our conference pretty much every year, I think. And we weren't really getting a ton of attention. Like people weren't coming to
Yes.
our games, no one was talking about it. And so I wanted to do something about it. Um, and so that's really kind of like what got me more on the video side of things. And my broadcasting teacher was super encouraging and he wrote me like an amazing letter of recommendation when I was going to college and decided that that was the route that I wanted to go in. And I think once I got to college and started working in the athletics department for classes even, it just really solidified that was the area that I wanted to be in. So
That's awesome, because a lot of people, me included, um, you get into school, your undergrad, you don't know, you have an idea of what you want to do, and then once you get into it, sometimes it's like, I don't know if I can make money doing this. I don't know if I can find a job doing this. I don't know if I want to do this for the next 20 years. But,
yeah.
um, the fact that you knew what you wanted and here you are is amazing.
Yeah.
Um, so when did you graduate? Purdue, correct?
Yes, Purdue Boilermaker. I graduated
Boilermakers.
in 2015. So that yeah, a couple of years ago now.
So 2015. When you graduated, was your first job with the Sun? I mean, geez, the Sun.
That's your team,
Home
not
team, yeah.
mine.
With the Sky?
Yeah, actually, and I think this is a side about this industry that a lot of people give up on because I saw a lot of people give up. It actually took me a year and 4 months post graduation to
Oh,
land
wow.
a job with this guy. Um, and I was working in retail full time. I hated it. And it just really wasn't what I wanted to do. And there were times I for sure felt like I wasted my time in college. There's no way that I'm going to be successful in this. And but I kept trying and I got the internship with this guy, I think in January of 2016. And then um went through the season with them, and right before playoffs is when the person that was my supervisor, the coordinator at the time, she left for another role. And she was like, "Is this something that you're interested in?" She's like, "So I think you're ready for a position like this, and if
That's
you are,
awesome.
then I will back you if they want to look at any of like the interns." And so I was like, yeah, of course. Like I had a lot of fun in my internship and
Yep.
it was sports, it was women's basketball. And so yeah, I had a quick kind of informal interview with her boss who already knew me.
Yep.
And a couple of days later had an offer from them. So
That's
I,
awesome.
but it took a long time, and I've
Yeah,
seen a lot of people that I had graduated with had given up already in like that first year of even trying to get into any kind of production industry, whether it was sports or TV and film, because it's hard. I mean, it's
for
not
sure.
easy to
Yeah.
do.
Was that your dream job? or were you applying everywhere at that point?
At that point, I think I was applying to a lot of places, and within that year, I had like interviews with like NBC Sports in Chicago, a couple of news stations. I actually had a job offer from a news station, in South Bend, but I ended up turning that down. Um, it just wasn't like where my heart was. But I think, yeah, I think the sky. I mean, I don't want to say it was a dream job. I think it was the one of the first ones that gave me an opportunity, and I fell in love with it. I will say
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Nice. Nice. Um, so I know you and our paths have crossed on a few occasions. At Mohegan Sun at the Sun games. Um, I think the first time was the playoffs a couple years ago, and I reached out to you and I'm like, hey, would love to meet you, before or after the game or whatever, and you were like, same, but I'm so busy. Like I've got so much going on. It's the playoffs, and even again, even like in the I think the last time I saw you, it was very brief, kind of in passing. But I imagine being on the road, like traveling with the team, being on the road, there's a lot that goes into it and a lot that you have to do. What's a typical game day look like for you at home and when you're away, if they're different at all?
Yeah, they're a little bit different. I think on the road, it's just me from the content team that goes. So pretty much every element from shoot around to game to post game, every piece of content you're seeing is coming from me.
Sure.
And then at home games, obviously we have more cameras, we have more bodies. I don't always go to shoot around. Sometimes we would just send our social coordinator or one of our other video people to our practice facility where our shoot around was, and then um everybody else would just meet at the arena later in the afternoon. And then post game, the locker room would be one person, and then I would go and set up the press conference where when you saw me at Mohegan, I was like
Yes.
running out of the locker room to go set up the
Yes.
press conference that was about to start in like 2 minutes. So that's it's a lot of running around on the road, but it's still fun at the same time.
Yes. Do you get to so the Sky, that's your full-time job, correct? Um, do you do any other shooting outside? Do you do weddings? Do you do other sports or anything like that? Or is most of your creative outlet focused on providing content for the Sky?
I'll do some freelance gigs in the off season when I have a little bit more time. And in the season, I've had people ask me to do stuff, but I'm very selective on whether or not I take on even more.
Sure.
Because a lot of the times, we hit the midpoint of the season and I'm starting to hit burnout. So the last thing I want to do is agree to do something and not be able to do it to the best of my ability. So I definitely
Absolutely.
take on more of those during the off season, but I've shot, some like corporate vlog kind of videos for the client. I've done two weddings now, two smaller weddings, which
Nice.
actually I loved. And if I were to ever leave sports, I think I would probably dabble in that for a while. Um, because it's literally just like you get to tell the story of someone's special
Yes.
day, and there's just so many amazing moments, and I loved it. But I've done two weddings. I've done some stuff with my high school, or I've gone back and shot some of the sports teams for them. Our high school boys team soccer team made it to state a couple years ago,
That's
and
awesome.
they ended up winning it, and I got to do the semifinals game and the finals game when they actually won. I did some hype videos for them, and I'm actually going out to do boys and girls basketball next month at some point. So I've done a couple different things here and there.
Oh, okay. Wedding. Were you nervous doing the weddings?
Yeah, yeah, I really so the first one was actually a former coworker of mine. And it was in like the middle of COVID, and they wanted to have a small like wedding. It literally was their like immediate families for both of them. And it was, at this restaurant in the city. And um I was like, I've never shot a wedding. Like, are you sure you want me to do this? Like
Yeah.
I want to ruin anything for you. And she's like, no, I trust you. I trust you. Like, just come and do it. And so I agreed, and it turned out really good. I think the the mentality I have, and I know like I'll probably get ripped for this if anyone that actually shoots weddings finds out, but I actually did shoot in 120 FPS for that, because which is insane for a wedding, but
Yeah.
that way, like my main concern was like the actual ceremony itself, because I wanted to get her coming down the aisle, but I also wanted to get his reaction. And so like I got her as like she was walking in, and then as soon as she got like halfway down the aisle, like I turned and went to him, and luckily like his face was still like what his
Yeah.
reaction was. And so I was able to like slow those moments down in post, so it looked like it was more than one camera when it was really just me
Yes.
trying to hurry up. Um, but then and then the second one I did was for my brother's college friend, and I watched them grow up too. So I mean, it was awesome that they asked me to be a part of it. But they also wanted to live stream for people that couldn't make it.
Yes.
And then obviously like I've done live streaming for this guy with like press conferences and stuff, so I knew how to do it, but I was like, okay, I'm one person. Can I justify like bringing another person in to help me with this, or can I manage this on my own?
Yes.
And I ended up just doing it myself. And so like I was streaming it to YouTube for them, and I had one stationary camera that was like plugged into the laptop with
Yep.
OBS up, and that's how I was running it through there. And I was trying to also monitor it at the same time, because I was worried like what if the audio cuts out, or like someone bumps something. So I actually had it pulled up on YouTube on my phone. I had my Bluetooth, like my headphone on, one of my
Yes.
headphones on. My phone was in my pocket, so I was like still listening to it in one ear, also listening to it live, and filming like my second
Yes.
camera. So it was a little bit chaotic on in that point, but it turned out really good. And I mean, obviously, like the ceremony is a lot different, or the reception's a lot different.
Reception. Yeah.
Easier to kind of work with. So, but
Jeez.
I loved it. It was a lot of fun, and I think both videos turned out great, and both parties were happy with it. So
That's awesome. And that's really all that matters. As long as they're getting the product, they're seeing their vision come to life. I mean, that's really all that matters. Um, so I've got a question, and it might be a little different for you as somebody who's primarily shooting video. What type of camera are you using for the most part?
I
Or
have
what
an
brand?
A63, a Sony.
Okay.
I used to be Canon. I had before I got the Sony, I was shooting on a Canon 70D. Obviously, like when I upgraded to the Sony, it was a huge difference. I mean, in terms of like color, and then obviously like having the different frame rates to choose with, or to choose from. And I think that makes like a huge difference in sports video, especially being able to shoot in that high frame rate. So
Sony.
that's
And then for typically for a basketball game, lens, what type of lens are you using?
when I first got the Sony, I was shooting on I had the Tamron 70 to 180.
Okay.
So it's a zoom lens. It's a 2.8. It was kind of, Tamron's cheaper alternative to the Sony, the 70 to 200 G Master, which is, like I think it was literally like $1,000 difference. So
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
yeah, and if you're just starting out Tamron, I'd look at their but yeah, so I still have the lens, and I still use it. But I was shooting with the zoom from the baseline at first, and then I finally got the 70 to no, sorry, not 70, the 28 to 70
Okay.
Tamron, the same
Yep.
like family range. And I actually like that better, especially now with TikTok and Reels, being able to shoot wider. So when you're cropping you're not cutting so much off, and you can see more of the play. So I think that's more so my go-to now.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Okay. Um, so you mentioned that you played basketball. You were on a very good team. What position did you play?
I was a power forward or center, which is insane when you think about it, because I'm really not that tall. I'm 5'6", so I had no business being in the
You
post.
you you sacrifice for the team whatever they need to win, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that's benefited you in shooting professional basketball?
I think it helps. I don't think it's necessarily like a must. But it does help like you understand the game and even anticipate a little bit.
Yes.
Um, Obviously, like Sloot throws some crazy passes, so she's caught me a couple of times. So I, it's you can't always control it, but
Yeah. Yeah, and you mentioned anticipation. One of one of the things that's been really frustrating to me lately. I have a friend he's a high school coach, but basically they have like the same program pretty much from like first and second grade all the way up through high school. So he'll ask me to go out and shoot like second and third grade basketball, boys and girls. And basketball is basketball, but at the same time, you know, in kind of knowing the game, you anticipate what's going to come up, or like, maybe out the corner of your eye, you can see somebody that's open and kind of anticipate that a pass is going that way. When I tell you these second and third graders keep me on my toes at all times, like I'm constantly just like jumping because I'm thinking they're gonna do something and they don't. And like you said, just anticipating, being able to anticipate is I feel like it's almost underrated in like importance when it comes to sports. Just kind of trying to be a step ahead to capture a moment,
yeah, yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
so when it comes to a clip or something that you're trying to get, what do you what am I trying to say? What do you define as being a good video clip? Is it capturing the moment? Is it capturing a reaction? Is it what makes a good clip in your eyes?
I think it really depends on what you're working on. Like if you're just putting highlights out, I think definitely like the play itself. What does it look like? Was it a crazy pass? Did the crowd react? Do you hear that? I think that is what I generally look at. But I think like if you're looking at, telling a broader story, I would say like those kind of cinematic moments when you think nothing is happening. I think those are kind of like, the stoic faces, the prep for that I think looks really cool.
Yeah,
Trying to catch like the right spotlights. Crystal does an amazing job during lineups of just getting these like other angles of their faces that, we've used in a couple of the hype videos recently of just them like sitting on the bench, just waiting for their name to be called.
yeah,
I think a lot of times those moments are overlooked. Everyone's so like, I want the action. I want the action. Well, like, what else is happening in the game that you're not seeing? So,
absolutely. Absolutely. And when it comes to the games, again, you're at all of the games, home and away. In terms of what you're trying to capture, does that vary game to game, or is it dependent on the opponent or a milestone that's coming up? Like how do you determine um what your goals are for a particular game?
I think with home games, since we usually have so many bodies, and then we also have like interns that are floating with cameras too, it's pretty easy to cover any aspect. We usually have like two people on the floor shooting each end, and then people floating and looking for those other angles and different perspectives of the game. Um, and then I think crowd shots too are something that is often overlooked, especially when you're trying to go back and tell like the story of the game, with
Yep.
for us like the finals. It would not be the same kind of video if we didn't have the reactions of the crowd in there.
Yes.
And rally calls like waving and stuff like that. So I think it varies. On the road, I think I more so just tend to focus on highlights.
Sure.
being as the sole camera, and it's a little bit different, but yeah.
Um, just speaking on you mentioned interns and they'll have their cameras and setups and the whole nine. Um, do you guys have to provide your own equipment or does that come from the team, from the league?
It's a little bit of both. I'm super comfortable with my personal camera, so I tend to lean towards using that. With this guy, we do have like a Sony A7 IV and a couple other options, Sony options too. And then with interns, they're kind of in a similar situation where, we tell them like we have these extra cameras. If you want to use these, you can, but a lot of them have their own that they want to
Gotcha.
continue like getting more comfortable with. And I'm fine with that. Like if that's what they want to do. Obviously, like we'll provide, SD cards here and there if we can. There's been games where we've forgotten though, and they're just dumping onto there. So but that's fine, too. So it's a little bit of both.
Okay. What do you enjoy most about what you're doing now with the Sky? Um, and that it can be anything. It could be your interactions with your colleagues. It can be actually getting, clips and highlights or, post production. Like, what's your favorite part of what you're doing right now?
That's a really tough question. I don't know. I think we're working on, some cool feature stories, leading into season that I'm excited about. I don't want to give away too much. But I love I know for me, I think it's just the storytelling side of things. I think women's sports is still very much growing, and I think right now is the
Agree.
time to really push those stories out there. There's interest, it's there, like people are looking now. So I want to continue to try to tell those stories, especially for the players that I've seen, in my time here really kind of come up. Kalia is the perfect example of that. And
Yes.
um I try to get her involved in content as much as I can, not only because she's a fun personality, but she's
Yes.
also got like an amazing story. So definitely I think just getting to be a part of putting their stories in the forefront.
Awesome. Um, you mentioned earlier the finals. The finals run a couple of years ago, 2021. And I kind of want to get into that as well as All-Star Weekend last year. So 2021, in my opinion, it was a great year for the WNBA, but obviously even better for you and the team winning the championship. How was that ride throughout the season and then obviously through the playoffs?
Hey man, that was a crazy year. Like I don't think any of us really, like if you would have asked me at the beginning of that season if I thought we were gonna win it all, I would have said no.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a ride. And I think we went on that like a 7-game losing streak, shortly after the
Yes.
beginning of the season. And
Yep.
that was rough. That was rough, like seeing the players get down on themselves. And obviously like in the locker room you see it a lot more, and being like up close to it. And it sucks because you feel for them, you feel their frustrations, and you also feel like their like sadness.
Yep.
And like I know Coach Wade was, frustrated in himself too as a coach. And, I don't know how well he really expressed that, but it was it was a rough time. And so when that turnaround hit and something clicked and they went on the 7-game like winning streak after
Yep.
that, it was just like, this is awesome. I don't know where this burst of energy came from, but like let's keep riding it out. And then when we got to the playoffs, I think at that point, because we were like the 6th seed, it was just like we
Something
really
like
don't
that. Yeah.
have anything to lose at this point. So I think that's really also what gave them a boost, is like, let's just keep going. Like, how far are we gonna get in this? Um, Definitely a surreal moment when you're sitting on the baseline during the finals.
Yes.
I feel like I even had butterflies and like nervous feelings during the first game. We were in Phoenix, they were the higher seed, and the noise, the crowd level in that arena was just absolutely insane. Like I was like, I don't know how they're gonna focus in this. And I think you saw the jitters in the game one, and game 2, came back and it was just like, all right, they're not here, like, and they did their thing. And then coming back to Chicago, and we knew it was sold out. I think everybody knew it was a sold out arena, which was
Hmm.
probably the first time that it happened, and it was exciting to hear that from, you know, having been with the team when the stands were empty to now like seeing a
Yes.
packed arena. Um, but I think the first game was, we played really well. It was I think we blew them out by like 40, if I remember right. And then
Yeah.
game 4, and we were just trailing that entire game, and I just remember sitting there on the baseline. I was like, man, we're going back to Phoenix. And I was like, this sucks, because I knew I would probably still be the only content person going, and I was like, if we win out there and it's just me, like
Yeah.
it's gonna be rough in terms of content. Um and then I don't know what happened in the fourth quarter, but they again flipped a switch and
Yeah.
pulled it off in the last couple of minutes. I mean, I remember like sitting next to one of our he used to be an intern of mine, but he was freelancing for us on that day. He's an amazing photographer. His name's Andrew, and we were both sitting there like, are you ready? You ready? Like waiting for this
Yeah.
buzzer to go off. And the second it did, we just bolted with behind everybody and got to the on the court as fast as we could. But it was like just even being in that mob, like it was just like you couldn't even move at some point. I remember like during the trophy ceremony too, like everybody was like pushing and shoving, and I'm like, yo, calm down. And so it was crazy. The locker room, the champagne
Yeah.
baths, showers, everything, that was awesome to get to be a part of. Kyle was like, she literally came up to me and she's like, I'm about to squirt you with this. I was like, please don't. I have this camera in my hand. But it
Did she
was,
listen to you?
she didn't. She was just, or she did, but she was like laughing about it, just kind of walked away. And I'm pretty sure someone got me at some point, but I kept the camera dry.
Yeah, there you go. And you were part of the parade, or you were getting content at the parade, correct?
Yeah.
Was that
So
equally as crazy?
yeah, I the day that we won, we were getting all this content out, and they had like a little food and drink reception like as soon as the game ended up in the club in our arena. And I went up to get some food and a drink, and our CEO comes up to me and he's like, hey, we got a meeting tomorrow with the mayor's office in the city about the parade and rally, like, can you be there? It's at 10 a.m. in Millennial Park. And I was like, okay, yeah, I think I
Yeah.
can make it. Mind you, I didn't know we were going to the club after. So I showed up the next day, and I'm thinking it's gonna be like 5 or 6 people from the city and a couple people from our staff, but no, it was like the city, like the mayor's office, the parks people, police
Yes.
chiefs, fire chiefs, like all these people, and it was like I wasn't expecting that, but
Yeah.
their event coordinator was like, okay, this is where we could put these banners, these banners, these banners, and I need like the edits like by like noon. And I'm like, okay, let me call our designers. I'm like calling everybody, like, okay, this is what we need to do. Prioritize this. This needs to be done. I need this at this time. What are the color numbers, like the Pantone numbers and all
Yep.
this? And so it was very chaotic the next day of like pulling it together. And then they also wanted, I think our game ops team that put together like the script for it, they wanted like 5 videos. And I was like, okay, let me start going get everybody again. So I'm like, all right, you're gonna do this one, you do this one, you do this one, I'll do that one.
Yep.
We split everything up, but I think I still went to bed at like 5 in the morning and had just finished sending everything over. Slept for like 3 hours, got up, was like chugging energy drinks as I'm
Yeah.
driving back to the city, back to the arena, and I was running on fumes at that point,
I
but
believe it.
we got through it, and it was a lot of fun. We got some amazing shots, and then they took the team and staff and everybody out for a nice dinner at RPM. So it was a long day.
Yeah.
Worth it.
Yeah. I mean, again, to win a championship, I'm sure you would do that a million more times if you could, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was definitely worth it. That was a story. Like I think that entire week I probably got like 10 hours of sleep, but you know what? It was worth it. It's a moment that you don't know how often you'll get that opportunity. So
Exactly.
took it in.
Exactly. And I know a big storyline of that finals was Candace Parker, and you've gotten a chance to cover her, and she's one of the most decorated basketball players, let alone, women basketball players. Um, do you have a relationship with her? Do you game plan, like when you're putting together, when you're brainstorming content or highlights or anything like that, do you keep in mind like who she is? And she's getting up there in age, we don't know how much longer she's going to play. um do you keep that in mind, just like, one of the all-time greats, we need to make sure we document all of this?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Candace is awesome. I'm not gonna lie. When the first time I met her, I was very much like starstruck and kind of nervous to even approach her because she was the caliber athlete that she is. But I actually grew up like 10 minutes down the road from where she did, like a town over. So my high school coach would tell us stories about scouting her and
Yeah.
stuff. So like she was always like, to me, just always this person that was in the Chicago basketball realm, even in the suburbs, like out by where we played. And um so I definitely was nervous, but she was like, I remember the first day that she was there, I had a Bears shirt on because it was the day we drafted Justin Fields.
Okay.
And so she was like, "What do you think of Justin Fields? Like, are you excited?" Like, she just came up to me like she knew me and just started having this conversation
That's
with me
awesome.
about the Bears. So it was really cool. And I think even after that, it took me like a little while to like not be like shy around her.
Yeah.
I think we actually, when we were, I want to say in Connecticut, like the first time that season, we went out for like a team dinner at one of those restaurants, and um, she was at the same table as me, and she's like, "I'm still trying to get you to open up to me more." She's like, "You're too quiet around me," and I'm like, like I'm a quiet person.
Yeah.
But she's really cool. And then for sure, like just with documenting her stuff, I mean, we usually, and cameras are always rolling during games, so
Yeah.
we try, and most of the times we do get multiple angles of any awesome plays that she has. I tried to get as much from huddles as I could, because she would be in there those couple games that she was out at the beginning of 2021. Like she was in there coaching, the players too,
Yeah.
and picking them up and giving them advice and guidance and stuff. So it's been really cool to see up close.
That's awesome. And then, you mentioned Kalia earlier, just a big personality, seems to always be having fun. You've got Sloot and Allie and all these players. Do they make your job easier or harder? Just with the way that they kind of operate.
Ka for sure she's such a goofball and so fun to work with. Like she'll sit there and like be ready to start every time. I feel like it's every time I go to film with her, she'll be like, "All right, ready?" And like I'm like, "Yeah," I hit record. And then she'll sit there like stoic for a second and then just busts out laughing. Like every time. And I probably should make a compilation of it at some point because it would be hilarious. But yeah, she's great to work with. And then Sloot and Allie, like they're both such pros at like what they do,
Yes.
and I don't think it's ever really like pulling teeth to get anything out of them for interviews or anything like that. So they've been fun. Obviously, like Diamond was awesome to work with too. She was another one. She just had this swagger to her that
Yes.
it's just, it was fun to capture. Lexi was another one the same way. I'm trying to think of who else this year. Like Emma was great to work. She was fun to work with. She was quiet, a little bit more on the shyer side, but she gave us some really great sound bites a couple of times. Um, but yeah, I mean they're fun to work with. I really love this team, and I think that's part of what's fun about the W is that they're so willing to do the fun and goofy stuff too.
Yes. Yes. Um, and then just really quickly, All-Star Weekend last year. Um, how was that? You guys hosted the All-Star festivities. Were you primarily following your players. I think it was who was on the I think it was Kalia, Candace, and maybe Sloop
Sloot
or
and
All
Emma.
Stars. Yeah.
Was
Um,
four players that were all stars, and then Allie was in the 3-point, Z was in the skills, and then Coach Wade and his coaching staff coached one of the teams. So
okay.
Chicago's very heavily present.
Yeah.
Which
Were you primarily focused on, your squad, or were you covering everybody for the weekend?
I think initially we started off with just following our players around, and then game day, just in terms of what credentials were, it was complicated for some of the other teams to be able to get shots that they needed.
Hmm,
So our staff, because we were the host team, our credentials were a little bit different, and I ended up sending a text to everybody. I was like, hey, just shoot everything, and we'll go through and divvy up and send out what we can to the other teams so that they have it. I'm good friends with a lot of my counterparts across the league, so
sure.
obviously I want to help them in whatever way that I can, being the host city. So um we did that, and after the game we stayed there and we went through everybody's SD cards and divvied up by team and just sent out an email of like, hey, we got this footage for you guys, if feel free to
That's
use it however
awesome.
you see it. So I know, like, I want to say I think it was Crystal shot, she got Sill's dunk,
Oh
and it was
yeah,
a full angle of it. We sent it out to Minnesota, and I think they gave it to ESPN, and it was in the commercial that was constantly playing.
that's
So she was
awesome.
like, "That shot looks familiar." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure we sent that." So definitely, like, that's just the type of expect, or I guess, like, I don't know what the right word is. I want to set a standard of like being able to help each other out. This is still growing,
Absolutely.
so I think we should be looking at each other for assistance where we need it.
Absolutely. I agree with that. That's I mean, not weird, but um, the fact that team photographers, videographers, they didn't have the same access, or, I don't know. I I don't know. That seems a little weird to me, but what can I say?
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, I get it though. I mean, it's how do you accommodate 12 teams on the court?
yeah,
So it makes sense in the grand scheme of things, and I understand it, but it doesn't mean that I love it.
yeah, I got you. So video creator for a professional sports team. Um, that's a dream job for a lot of people. Um, I don't want to frame this as you're like unappreciative or anything like that, but is this where you want to be forever? Do you want to grow within the sky? Do you want to do more with the league in general? Or at some point, do you think you see yourself opening up a wedding, video business or something like that?
I haven't really thought about that. I think for now, like, sports is the area that I want to stay in, and I think, maybe when I do want to, plant some roots somewhere at some point, then maybe I'll make the change to get out of sports.
Sure.
The hours are crazy, as I'm sure anybody that works in this industry understands, but just the amount of time that you have is, to yourself, especially during season, is very limited. But I do love the and women's sports, and being a part of the avenue of like helping to amplify their voices and grow the leagues. I think I would be willing to work in any women's team, in the grand scheme of things. But I, I think I would want to branch out and try some other sports at some point. I just don't know when.
Yeah.
I like
You don't
where I'm
have a
at.
lot of time.
Yeah. But I did also play soccer in high school, so I do love, that game as well. Um, so I mean, you got the U.S. national women's team that's always amazing. NWSL that's also growing.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I don't know if this is where I'll stay forever, but it's definitely a side of sports that I do love.
Speaking of the dub, you said, you want to see it grow. You kind of want to do your part to help it grow. I was just having a conversation the other day, actually. I think, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think we're both we're happy with the growth that we've seen. And in fact, you mentioned it earlier, but you had an Instagram post yesterday or the day before talking about how when you first started, there was nobody in the stands, and now you have, these full arenas. It's grown considerably, which is fantastic, but it still feels like there's more room to expand. Um, do you have any thoughts, any ideas? Like what can we do as creators, photographers, journalists, writers? Like what can we do to help promote, help grow the sport that's it's honestly incredible. Like if people really take the time to watch the league, like these are some extremely talented women. It's great basketball.
That's a great question. I think in terms of just what else we can do is just keep telling people to watch. I think
Yeah,
Twitter has also been amazing at like, if I guess, for like pushing for the change. So I think that that has helped in some retrospect. But I also think just in terms of what content people could do, I think expanding to like other markets and different demographics is would be huge for it too. I grew up in the Chicago suburbs, and I've gone to a lot of Bulls games over time, but you go there and you see like so many different cultures and different demographics in that arena, where I feel like you don't necessarily see that. I don't think that's reflected in ours.
sure.
So how do you grow that in communities that you don't think would necessarily come to the games, but they're going to Bulls games? I'm
Gotcha.
Hispanic.
Yeah.
Obviously, I look at that a lot. The Bulls have a huge Hispanic following. They do the Noche NBA and the Los
Yep.
Bulls jerseys and all of
Yep.
that stuff. I would love to see at some point teams or the W expanding to this Hispanic market a little bit more. My dad, when he goes down to Mexico, he's texted me a couple of times and said like, "Oh, there's girls on here that have Taurasi and Deladon shirts," and they're talking about the W2, and like they're
Yeah.
aware of it. So it's not like it's not reaching out there, because it
Yeah.
is. It's
Yep.
just, how do we make it a little bit more accessible to those communities and get them to either fully convert to fans, or start coming to games, or getting it more accessible to them wherever they're at.
One
So
thing I
that's
will say, I'm
I
sorry,
would
go ahead.
no, I'm just saying like that's just one thing that I would love to see at some
Yeah.
point.
Yes, I agree. I agree. One thing, and I hope I don't get you in trouble for saying this, but one of my frustrations is the app, the WNBA app, and the League Pass, because they make it very difficult to watch games and watch them live, I guess I should say. A lot of blackouts and things like that. And I would like I would love to be able to say, "Hey, there's a game on," or like, "Come over, let's watch a game," or something like that. Because like I said, it's a great product. And to your point, you guys are telling stories, you're telling, who these women are, what they've been through, how they grew up, the whole nine. There's so much there that um uh, I really want to. I've been asking everybody. I really just want input on like what we can do to try to grow the game, because it's a great one.
Yeah, I mean, I think even just getting people out to the games is one thing. Because I feel like I've seen or I've heard from a lot of people where they might not necessarily sit down and turn the game on at home, but if they go to the game, they're like, "Oh, this is fun. Like,
Yeah.
the game's fun to watch. It's engaging and stuff like that." So I've heard that come from a lot of people that don't generally watch. When they actually show up and go, they're like, "Oh, it's fun. Like, I will come again."
Yeah.
So I think it sounds like simple, but I think that is part of it. Like if you get the extra ticket, I mean, let's be real, tickets aren't that expensive for
Yep.
WNBA games. Like, buy an extra ticket for your neighbor that you don't think would actually go, and see how it goes. You might
Yeah.
make a fan out of them. So
Yeah. There you go. Um, do you have a single shot, single video, picture even. I know you've dabbled a little bit in some pictures. You have some really good ones actually. I remember throughout the playoffs, but do you have a favorite picture or favorite video that you have taken?
Um, Picture, I think probably the more recent one is I should think we were in Connecticut. It was of Ka when she was like literally her hand was over the rim.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
And it just was I remember taking that like burst of photos, and when I went back and I was looking at them, I was like, there's no way she's that high. I was like, where's her feet? I can't even see them. Like, and
I'm convinced she can dunk.
she
I'm
probably
convinced.
can. I'm waiting for it, and I keep telling her, I'm like, you need to tell me the game that you're gonna try. Um, but yeah, that was definitely one of my favorite photos. I like immediately sent it in our Slack channel, and I was like, look at this picture I just got, and everybody was like, oh, we got to get that out.
Yeah.
So we posted it, and I sent it to her like as soon as the game was over, and I was like, did you realize that you were this high? And she was like, no. So, but yeah, I think that's definitely my favorite picture. And then video, clip, that's tough. I feel like there was this one, I feel like it was a very underrated moment for Diamond, in 2021 where we were playing Phoenix and she was coming up the court and she started going up for the layup, and she was kind of like centered of the lane, and she was going up with her right hand, and then she switched to her left as she was going up. And I don't like I saw it happen, but no one else did. And like I'm looking around like, did no one else just see her switch hands in the air? Like that's literally like Jordan right there.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I think that one was a super cool moment. And then this other the chant that they used to do pregame.
Yes.
I think one of the times I got it was in the one that was my favorite was when we were at Barclays. And they were coming up the hallway, and it's a pretty narrow hallway from the locker room to the tunnel. Um, and there was also this like curve, and I was trying to hurry up. I didn't have time to like switch lenses, so I had a zoom lens on, which I usually shot that with like a 35. So
Mhm.
I'm like at 70 instead. And I'm walking backwards, and I knew there was like a turn coming, and I'm just kind of like waiting for it. I knew there was a tarp coming, so I like was trying to like feel for that with my arm. So I knew when to turn, but I was walking backwards, and it was a little bit shaky, but it was an awesome shot. And then I think we ended up taking like a screen grab and making it like one of our album covers for just
Gotcha.
like a
Yes.
random graphic post.
Yep.
Later that week, but it was definitely like a really cool shot. So
Okay. Okay. Um, so you've been doing photography, or you've been in the W and kind of in this role, internship into this role since 2016. Um, what have you learned in your time in this position, in your time in, I guess, just the industry in general? What's a lesson that you've learned from that you kind of apply to your life, your everyday life?
I think patience is a big one. I think that was, you know, like I mentioned, it took me a long time to actually land the full-time job in the industry.
Yes.
That's, like I said, something that a lot of people give up very early on in this industry, because they think they don't get the job right away. Like that's it, it's over, they're no good. Like no, keep going. And then I think the other one too is to not get so caught up in like the fancy like equipment and having the best of everything, because at the end of the day, the person behind the camera is the one that's making the content. So if
Yes.
you know what you're doing and you know how to use your camera well, and your shots are great, and your composition's good, and you're just a straight storyteller, if even if you're shooting on your iPhone, I think you could still tell amazing stories with
Absolutely.
the stuff that you can find every day, like your phone or an older camera, whatever it may be. I think everybody wants the newest Sony and the nicest lens, and while that helps, it's not a necessity.
Sure. Not the
So,
end all be all. You've got to know what you're doing, not just technically, but like you said, if it's storytelling or if you're catching highlights, like if you can't do it, it doesn't matter what type of equipment you have, you
yep.
know. So that's a perfect way to end it. I do have one last question for you. This is not sports related. It's not photography related. It's food related. Is a deep dish a pizza?
Yes, it is a
Oh
pizza,
my
but
gosh.
it's a pizza for tourists. We do not eat that on the regular. I'm telling you that right now. The only time we ever do is like a special occasion, or that friend from out of town is coming and they're
Yeah.
like, I've never had deep dish, and you're like, okay, we got to go to Lou's, I guess. We get the tavern, thin crust and the squares. That's what we eat on the regular here.
Okay. Okay. That's what I've heard, but I had to check. I haven't had Lou's. The one time I had deep dish, it was Giordano's.
Oh, they're
Um,
good. I like both. There's some people that are like hardcore one or the other, but I like both of them.
okay. So it was good, but I just had to ask. I personally don't think it's a pizza, but I had to get your feedback being a native, you know?
Yes, it's pizza.
So that's all I got for you, Amber. I appreciate you so much. I'm glad we were finally able to make this happen. You are a
Oh, for sure.
gem. You are extremely talented. I love everything you're doing over there. Um, Hopefully I'll see you once the season starts. But
For sure.
do you have anything that you want to let anybody know? I'll have your Instagram, your website, and all that good stuff. But is there anything else we should know about you and or the upcoming Chicago Sky season?
I don't know. I feel like I can't really say much right now. So,
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. We'll just
but
have to be on the lookout.
yeah, yeah. I definitely think we're gonna have some cool content coming out this season. We've definitely been brainstorming ways to refresh social, so I'm excited for it.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited for it as well. I can't wait to see what you do this upcoming year and moving forward. And again, thank you so much for taking some time.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Happy New Year. It's towards the end of the month, but I'm gonna keep telling people Happy New Year until the end of January. Happy New Year. Nothing but continued success in 2023.
I appreciate it. You too.
I appreciate you. Have a great night, and I'm sure we'll be in touch.
Sounds good.
All right. Bye.
Bye.